All right. So in the ever just rolling saga of Conor McGregor, now it looks like he's going to be rematching Dustin Poirier. They're aiming for a January date. That seems to be in the air right now about what sort of plans that ESPN has and what the UFC is willing to move around their schedule as far as accommodating what is sure to be a big event anytime Conor's involved. But we're on this topic because there seems to be some sort of um, I don't know, some news about what this weight could be that they're fighting at. We're hearing that Connor wants this at welterweight as opposed to lightweight, a fight that would seem to have implications for the lightweight division. So gentlemen, would you be okay with this being a fight at 170?
Me personally, of course, I hate weight cutting. Everyone should hate weight cutting. Do it at a more natural weight. Why are both of you going to kill yourselves for the scale? Especially considering that this is not a title fight. It's a fight where both guys are just looking to get some action for the for the most part. And yes, of course, obviously with wins, that does put them closer to a title fight. But do it at 170. Like I'm not a fan of guys killing themselves for the scale, and we know Dustin Poirier um, doesn't necessarily have the toughest of weight cuts, but we've seen how much better Connor looks at 170 is like a human being. You know what I mean? Like he looks healthier at his more natural weight. And I don't know of any other fighter that readily comes to mind where that's more apparent. I think about his 145 days looking like Skeletor on the scale versus at 170. The first time he fought at 170, he was up there rubbing his belly, feeling real nice and healthy, well nourished, should I say. But do it at 170 and let the outcome, fall where it may. I don't see the reason for them to cut down to 155 for this.
Well, man, I asked that because not because I understand the weight cutting conversation. I
Yeah.
mean, it's something we both see eye to eye on, and most people who have half a brain think that weight cutting is a stupid thing and that has no place in sports, especially a sport where you take concussive trauma to your head as part of the job description. But I mean, in the sense of what this means for the title picture. This is,
Mhm.
Dustin Poirier is not moving up to welterweight for a consistent part of his career, as far as we know. Conor McGregor, while he has flirted with 170, his flirtations came at the expense of career lightweights, Donald Cerrone and Nate Diaz. So I'm asking because are we seeing a commitment to lightweight and chasing the lightweight belt, or are we just trying to get our rocks off here?
I think it's just getting the rocks off for one fight. Why not? It's Conor McGregor. He's kind of like that wild card that you can kind of throw in and it really not matter. It's similar to I think back to Anderson Silva jumping up, a weight class. Why not? Like, let's just do this, and fight Forrest Griffin or whatever at 205. Like, why not have them do this fight? I mean, I think Poirier's legacy, so to speak, at 155 has been solidified. I mean, especially coming off that win over Dan Hooker. If you go out there and beat Conor McGregor at 155 or 170, yeah, you're still very much at the top of the list when it comes to title opportunities. Drake, what do you think about that?
So, I agree with the whole philosophy against weight cutting and all that. It is silly. But this, if it was, it's similar to obviously Connor versus Cerrone, as if they were to do the McGregor rematch with Poirier at 170 pounds too. Um, and the thing about doing that and then having them still being lightweights or whatever, heading towards the lightweight title, but fighting at 170, it completely defeats the purpose of weight classes, right? Like I think that weight classes are important. Maybe the weight cutting, not so much. Like if you can be in a weight class, but don't cut a crazy amount of weight, of course. So it's always nice to see fighters more healthy competing, right? That's what you want. You want them to be their best on fight night. So in terms of should this fight be at that weight in that regard? Absolutely. If you want the best fight possible, I mean, yeah, take away the difficulties to get them there. That's obviously makes sense to do that. But in terms of what it means in the grand scheme of things, and especially for lightweight, that just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me because then what's the point what's the point of lightweight then, or what's the point of you know what I'm getting at? So it just defeats the purpose. If they're not going to stay there, like make it work towards you can make it work towards welterweight, but then obviously that's a lot longer of a path to go because they're not two welterweights historically. So in terms of making the best fight, Conor getting his rocks off or whatever it may be, he's got this ability to kind of call his shots at this point, as we've seen. And if Dustin's okay with it, which he has been open to fighting at, 165s, 170s against Nate in the past, he's open to this kind of thing as well. So it's more of just, making the fighters as comfortable as they can be, which all for that definitely. But in terms of for it to matter the most from a divisional perspective or title aspirations, no, you have to do it 155 in that case because they don't fit in with 170 yet. That's a lot longer of a conversation to have.
Well, Drake, you definitely brought up something that I wanted to get at there, and that's 165. I mean, this is a division that a lot of people have begged for. Um, we've had Nate and Dustin campaign for this together as they were prepared to fight each other at Madison Square Garden, UFC 230. So, I mean, is this the fight to roll out 165? And if so, I mean, why not throw a belt in there? I mean, this is Conor after all. They want him fighting for a belt. Conor McGregor holding a belt sells a lot of pay-per-views. Um, Probably sounds like if you want to take this cash grab, which keep in mind every Conor McGregor fight from here on out is a cash grab. I mean, they were trying to find some way to slot him in against Khabib again before the Cerrone fight. So the UFC is willing to just kind of look the other way past sporting integrity and just go toward the big pile of green that McGregor is going to bring. So, do you see this as the inaugural 165-pound title fight, and maybe now maybe they use that as a pawn to springboard into other huge paydays?
I like that idea. I mean, I haven't been a person who is all for 165 like a lot of people have been. I think it's just kind of if you're gonna do that, then obviously you have to arrange the others. I feel like that's the part that's been left out about that conversation is adjusting the rest of the weight class. It's all about kind of bringing in 165, which if you do that alone and not fix the other ones, I don't really like that part. But yeah, I think if you were gonna do this fight there, that's totally fine. The only problem would be if Connor wins, then it kind of immediately fucks up the future hopes of the division because our first champion, he's probably going to go and try and capture another belt and not defend because that's just what he does, you guys. Just that kind of thing. But yeah, in terms of making this rematch be at 165, open up the division here. Man, you want to sell it to its full potential? That is absolutely the way to do it. And at this point, Connor is requesting that he's only main events right now. And I mean, considering what he does and draws, that is fair as much as, my purist in me hates to admit that because he's not a champion and everything and, wants the pay-per-view main event. So yeah, if he's going to be a main event over other champions, because I hate when non-title fights are above title fights, like Bellator used to do that a little bit. Thankfully, I haven't seen that in a long time. Absolutely hate that. And, we saw Diaz and Connor one
Yeah.
but kind of a special situation, but yeah, wasn't a fan of that just from, title fights. That takes away from the title, obviously. So if they're going to do this fight on, well, I guess January 23rd now, and then if there's title fights on that one, for me to be okay with that being over title fights, it's got to have a title on the line too. Why not make it the 165 one? But if there's no title fight, then that would be even better to kind of feel things out and see how excited everyone gets for 165. And I think that's a big enough draw to be like, all right, look at the first fight in this division. We're opening it up here starting. But then if you do that, it's kind of like, why not do a title? So yeah, either way, I think that would be the best business decision, I think. But Dana seems really that just hasn't been his thing, hasn't been his favorite idea.
And we're talking about the same company that has a supposed featherweight division for the women that features like one person. So this is not something that they haven't done before. I mean, they just started having a strawweight division, excuse me, a women's flyweight division. They just really kind of started having real, rankings and stuff in that. And so this is this is something the UFC could very easily do. They could decide, okay, we're going to go in for this 165-pound belt, not the division, the belt. And from there, um, especially if Conor wins, I think if Dustin Poirier were to win that, he would be the guy to just, okay, we're gonna fight whoever they think is the best guy that can weigh 165, and maybe we'll see him against Jorge Masvidal or something along those lines. It's very possible, and maybe then we finally get that fight between him and Nate Diaz. But if Conor wins, then this is the perfect bargaining chip for both sides of the equation right here. For Conor, he can say, hey, I have the 165-pound belt. That only puts me 5 pounds away from the welterweight champion. Kamaru Usman, come get this work. And he can say, well, I was the king at 155, and I'm reclaiming my title. I'm gonna wear this belt on the poster to rematch Khabib. But I want Khabib's belt. So like he wants that picture of him holding the two belts, standing on the cage with the new Power Ranger looking belts. So I think this is something in the UFC. I will not turn that down because it's going to make them so much money. I think 165 for this fight is the way to go. If you're not doing 155, then just go in for 165 because you can just make so much more money from that point on.
No, 100%, man. If you do the 165, if you think about a fight that would really usher it in and get people excited, it's got to be a Conor McGregor. He is the guy who literally fought Floyd Mayweather in a boxing ring. It's just like the things that the promotion will do for this man has never been seen before. So if he was really, really beating down the door talking about, I want to fight for the 165-pound inaugural title, then yeah, they'll give it to him. He just has to raise enough hell for it. And I don't know if he's really pushing for that as much as we would like to see that happen, because he's comfortable at fighting at 170. So why not just do that? He's done it, 3 times now, right? 2 against Nate, one against Cerrone. And doing that, if he fights at 170, he also still has a wide open playing field to call his next shot, because he will then, if he does have a win over Dustin Poirier, again, for the second time, he will then have more leverage to call for a rematch against Khabib. He's like, I just beat a guy at a higher weight class than you again. And then he could also say, depending on what's going on in the welterweight division at the time, when he decides to start throwing out some tweets, he could say, hey, I'm right in line for a title shot at 170 now. Even though I think we all know how a fight against Kamaru Usman would go. I don't think it would go very well for Conor. But the perfect answer, the perfect happy medium for everything would be that 165-pound division. Usher it in, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. That's a hell of a fight. And like Drake was saying, yes, it does come with the additional shift of the other 2 weight classes above it. So it becomes 175-pound. You call it super welterweight if you want to. I don't care. Just shift it to 175. Kamaru's still the champion. 185 doesn't have to move. And that's just it. If you wanted to get super crazy, which I don't think there's not enough fighters in between 185 and 205 to add a 195 division. The talent's just not there. There's just not enough guys that are really that interesting right now. So we don't have to add that 10-pound increment. You can leave that 20-pound gap there. That's just fine. But what you do have is you do have an influx of 155-pound fighters. You do have a lot of guys at 170 that can make that drop down or that move up and have a lot of interesting matchups. Khabib could then go for another title and be, Kamaru, if he really wanted to, could probably try to cut down another 5 pounds. I don't know. He does have tough weight cuts as it is to get to 170. So I wouldn't want to see him kill himself for another 5 pounds. But it's just the intrigue of possibilities, man. They would be endless. And I think there's no better way for the UFC to do it than to put Conor McGregor on that poster as the guy that brought in that division.
And I mean, For anybody who's like really like 100% against this, even you, Dana, I know you're watching. um, you made a BMF title, man. You made a fake trophy, right? And sold that. That did very well for you, sir. So I mean, you want to make this would essentially be the legitimate BMF type of division situation that you're doing here because it's just creating madness out of thin air. But it actually means something because it's going to stick around for a little bit. So I mean, you want to talk about something better than the BMF title? You could even call it that. Just make this. Don't even call it 165. Don't call it new welterweight, whatever. Just call it the BMF division, the 165-pound BMF division. There you go. And use the same belt. Sorry, Jorge. We're moving on, man. Not one of one is what it is, man. We gotta get those tickets, dude. Not tickets anymore at the moment, but gotta get those buys, right?
Dude, if you want to talk about a way to piss off Jorge Masvidal, but also in doing that, if they literally made it a 165-pound division again with the shift to 175. If you called it the BMF title, that essentially becomes the most prestigious title in the world because you do have the most talented fighters at 155, 170. So if they right in that sweet spot in the middle, that could become the most prestigious title in the world because it's a legit title now of a legit weight class at that point. But it's got this sweetness of baddest motherfucker around. Like, it could be something special. I like this. I like where we're going right now.
I mean, that's the thing about the BMF title was it was at 170 pounds. It was a welterweight fight, which everyone knows, like, this guy is not going to be the real champion. This is the second place belt, essentially. And even then, there were people ahead of him. Pretty much, Colby was ahead of him. There were contenders above Diaz and Masvidal. And so when that happened. But if they would have made the initial BMF title fight at a different weight, don't even say that they are. If they would have done it that way, that would have been the perfect catalyst. Let's say they made that fight at 165. No commitment to a division, whatever. Like, all right, BMF fight here, BMF title fight. They're like, okay, what weight's it at? 165 pounds. Like, what? Are you guys opening a division? We're just having a fight, you guys. Just don't say anything about it. Then afterwards, everyone would be like, that was awesome. You gotta bring this in now, even though the fight didn't turn out that great or competitive. I mean, that's the seed. That's a good test to actually see where that could go. But instead, they kind of, ruined that. And it was just a fun little trophy by having 170.
Now while we're talking about the trophy, now we'll if they name it another BMF title or they think of some other name, it turns into like the OMF, the obvious motherfuckers belt, or whatever you call it. Now if we do that, the most important question I think we should wrap up with today here fellas is, what celebrity do you want presenting that belt on the winner?
You got one in mind, Matt? I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, obviously, the obvious answer, considering we've already had The Rock. You can't do much better than The Rock,
ceiling,
right?
Yeah.
You can't do much better than that. And you can't go pro wrestling world again. Like, you can't go pro wrestling legacy. You can't. So you have to go the complete opposite. And it's one guy that the UFC is already highly favored with. And they've already done a documentary on him. And he's about to get voted out of office.
I knew somebody was going to go there.
It did come to mind. That did come to mind.
Yes. Could you see it? You could see it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
right. Tiny hands can hold the belt, but
let's stay on brand. Let's just stay on brand. Go all the way with it.
I got one for you. The celebrity I want to see present the next fake belt, Betty White.
Listen, I would agree with you, but I don't want Betty White anywhere near some COVID mess, man.
I want the golden girl to hand out the gold.
I think that we got to take this back to the good old days, right? Let's think back to 2000, right? We're going to bring back Face the Pain for this event. Really miss Face the Pain. And presenting this belt, we're going to have Fred Durst come out there, red baseball cap and all, man. A live performance from Limp Bizkit.
How about the Ghost of Everlast while we're at it?
Holy Jesus. Oh my God.
You can't be too busy these days.
They had Godsmack at the the 2019 International Fight Week concert. Like
Oh,
that,
really?
yeah, Godsmack. Like I haven't heard that name since high school. So, but whatever. This is the world we're living in. Why do I do this? That's probably a good point to stop it because this is going off the rails. Man, but Betty White presenting the belt, that's the shit.
She can be the ring girl.
Oh my god. Wow.